we're going to talk about taking photos of, yay, thank you, Debbie, of our dogs. But I'm really excited about today. So, again, today we're just going to be talking about taking, good morning, yay, I'm so glad this is working. We're going to talk about taking photos of, yay, thank you, Debbie, of our dogs. And like I said in the description, yay, it's not going to be about camera settings or anything, and it's not going to be about setting them up in the studio and that sort of thing, but trying to get really decent photos of our dogs when we're out and about, when we're exploring with them, just with our smartphones. Can be with a regular camera, and just fun. And the fun thing about digital is we get to just snap away and then delete. So unlike the olden days, if you remember, so I hit the 51 yesterday. So unlike the olden days where you're like, I got 36 photos, hopefully one's gonna work, and then after the vacation you take them into the place to get developed, and maybe one works, maybe one doesn't, and you're really being sensitive about how many pictures you take. I'm gonna go ahead and go to the screen share, and so I'm going to disappear, I believe. So we're going to talk about taking photos of our dogs and basically kind of snapshots. Not that we can't have our nice cameras with us, but we're going to talk about posing our dogs, trying to get them to look towards us, good lighting, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go through some slides, and fingers crossed that it will record in the group and stay in the group. I wonder if I hit my, all right, I'm in, yay, if I can do that. If not, we'll try to figure something else out. So there's Mr. Dexter, and that one was posed. So that was actually I have a makeshift studio in my bathroom on my garden tub. That I take photos of Dexter. So that does have lighting and the black backdrop. And I had a fan on Dexter to blow his ears. So now I did increase my volume, so if I get too loud, let me know too. So there we go. So that's Mr. Dexter. Alright, so we're going to come here. And needless to say, getting the best picture of our dog can be tricky. And like some said, we've done group shots too. And like training, when we want to get all those dogs together, we're going to be teaching each dog individually first so that we can put them together. You've seen Dexter travel with his buddy Levi, and you've seen all those travel photos. And at the very beginning of us traveling, Levi didn't know anything. So it was really hard because Dexter's sitting there staying, and Levi was jumping around. But luckily, there's that digital camera where we can just snap, 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 snap is what I do. And they're goofy and they're silly. Part of it is trying to remember that and to have fun. This is all about creating those good memories and seeing those good memories. So, we create those memories, but we want to be able to see them and remember them sometime fondly. So we're just going to pull up here. So, tip number 1. Train your dog to stay. So the stay cue is super important, because if we want to be able to have that dog in a pose and step 5 feet away from them or more, if we're trying to get some big objects into the camera, we need to have a reliable stay. We don't want them wiggling around too much. So that's the first cue that first tip. And I'm like looking at my slides and I'm looking at your guys' comments too. So sit, stay tips. So the little icon up there, the little YouTube icon here, is just a reminder kind of for me, or for you to remind me, that I do have this how to teach your dog to sit stay, how to teach your dog to down stay on my YouTube channel and my blog. So I'm going to link up so that you'll have more details on how to actually teach that. And within our group too, remember, I want our group to be friendly, supportive. That's right. The live over there is further away. I'm like, why is my live moving on the left? So teaching our dogs to do that stay, we can do it in the group. So post your stay, trying, what am I doing? How do I do this? I have 1 second. How do I build to 2 seconds? So what you're going to do to start to teach the stay is I usually like to start the stay in the sit position because they tend to do that a little easier than the down. Obviously, they don't all, listen to the rules. And we're just going to reinforce and give our dog a treat. And I use healthy treats, dog food, what they're eating, fruits and vegetables. And we're just going to reward them for not getting up. I usually actually don't add my stay cue until I have a good 5 seconds. But at the beginning, I'm just going to do 1 second at a time. So we're in that sit, I'm going to reward. We're in that sit, I'm going to reward. Sit, reward, sit, reward. So they're still sitting, and during that sit, they're getting like 5 treats. So sit, treat, sit, treat, sit, treat. So they're not sitting and getting up. They're continuing that sit. And once I, have those 5 treats given, then I'll give them a release word like, okay, all done, and then kind of encourage them to get up. So I'm just reinforcing that behavior, that sit, reward, sit, reward, sit, reward. And what you're going to do, this is not taking them into the photos. This is just teaching them the stay, outside that photo session. And what I'm going to do is I'm gradually going to build up that time that the dog is sitting and not moving. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. I like to think about, I like 3 minutes, not that I'm going to necessarily do a photo shoot with a sit stay for 3 minutes. Dexter wouldn't even be able to do that with his old man body. But that's kind of one of my goals for the training. And then I'm going to think about if I'm going to do photos, if that's kind of one of the goals, I'm, again, going to need to be at least 5 foot away from my dog. So sit, stay, I'm going to work on moving eventually 1 step at a time until I can get that 5 feet away from my dog and then going back and rewarding. So I'm taking 1 step back, saying you're a good boy, 1 step forward, giving him the treat for not moving back, and then 1 step back, good boy, 1 step forward, give him the treat for not moving back. And I'm going to build that time or those distance away. So again, I can gradually build up that 5 foot away from my dog. Now, if you can see that picture of Dexter, if you can see his leash to the left, how it's kind of looped up, it's attached to something. So when I am taking photos of Dexter out and about on, events and things, I'm not, even though Dexter has a reliable stay and I could easily drop that leash and he's not going to go anywhere, I tend to really attach that to something. So I'm, whatever's there around, I'll tie it around. I do bring little clips, so those carabiner clips, I can clip it around and attach it so it's a loop. I also have this little, see, now you can't see me, you can just see Dexter. It's a little U-shaped thing that I got at the hardware store, so I can put it over his handle of his leash and squish it into the ground like a stake, so I can do that for him too. So, and again, what I'll do at the end is we'll figure out some way of me to add to drop these videos and training so that you can see how to teach your dog to stay. So tip number 1 is teaching a good stay for your dog. And for those that had the multiple dogs, you're going to teach each dog individually. So again, back to Levi and Dexter, each dog needed to know how to do a sit stay at 5 feet away, if that's what I'm going to do. So Levi had to learn that too, and then they had to learn it together. Now, I didn't teach them together how to do it. Each dog learned how to do it, and when we put them together, it really wasn't a big deal. And again, when you're taking those photos, snap away. Just take as many as you need. Multiple dogs, the biggest challenge after teaching them those cues is being able to have all of them look at you at once. And we're going to work at that right now, right? We're going to teach that look cue. But that's, again, why I like taking tons of pictures, because someone's looking away. One dog's looking away. One dog's, moving and blurry. So the more photos that you have, the easier it is to go through them and delete them. So the next cue I like to do is teach the dog to look, to be able to look at you. So I teach it with, eye contact to me, and we're going to talk about later about how to, hold the camera so that they're still looking, towards the camera. So the first rule of thumb is we want to teach them that eye contact is a good thing. So looking at you is a positive thing. So if anyone's doing any kind of reprimanding, bad dog, looking at your dog, eye contact, and, pointing your finger, drop that. We want to make sure that dogs know that eye contact is good. And it's not just for photos, because people are always looking eye to eye with dogs, and that can be threatening to dogs. So we want to teach them that it's a good thing, especially with kids, because when kids go up to dogs, they're eye to eye, and again, we're doing that direct stare and that direct look, and if you haven't taught your dog that eye contact is good, they could get really threatened and intimidated, and then even kind of look away, or even kind of they might snap and things like that, and that's part of that. So teaching them that eye contact is good. So what you're going to do is you're going to have a happy, light, soft face. So kind of think about, all right, my facial expressions need to be happy and light and soft, so not firm and reprimand. And so with your happy look, what you're going to do is you're going to take your treat and you're going to go from your dog's nose right there, and you're slowly going to draw a line from his nose to your nose so that he's following that treat, and boom, we're looking at that treat, but it's in between your nose, and you're going to go yes, as your treat is right there by your nose, and you see his eyes, you're going to go yes, that tells him he's done it right, and then reward him. So he's learning that 1 second of looking at you, yes, and treat. 1 second, yes, and treat. You happy look when... Oh, so I looked over at my phone where the scrolling to kind of see your comments and stuff, and I see that it's it's giving me the text that I'm saying. So that's interesting. Are you seeing that as well? I wonder if that's something. Is that annoying? Maybe it's something I could remove next time. So 1 second and build. So you're gonna again build that eye contact for longer and longer, so that we're teaching them to look at you, because part of those great photos, for the most part, and we can have different expressions and different things of our photos, but it's looking at you, looking at the camera. So we want to build that eye contact. So that was actually teaching them how to do it. So I do have the video. So I have a video and a blog post. I think I have a blog post, but the video obviously is going to be more helpful on how to teach eye contact. So remind me if I don't. We'll go ahead and link that up, and you can see how to do that. And once again, no, we're not seeing your text. Okay, thank you. I am. So weird. So once again, in the group, give it a try. Hit the record. We have so many little stands that can hold our smartphones. Do a practice session, hit record, post it in the group, let us know how things are going. We can give tips, see what's going on, but light and happy. And your yes, again, there's my throat trying to go over. You're going to yes while your dog is looking at you, so that you're rewarding the eye contact, because once you go to feed your dog, they're going to drop their eyes, so that yes tells them they've done it right and the reward is coming. And just like stay and any other behavior, you're going to build on that. So 1 second, 2 second, 5 second, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, that sort of thing. All right. Tip number 3. 2 paws up. This is probably one of the first things that I taught Dexter to do, but teaching them how to do 2 paws up on an object is an amazing way to get so many different types of photos. With our smaller dogs too, it does help. So right there, Dexter, and we're going to talk, I think, about scenery. Dexter's in front of a nice little falls area. And it was you had to look over the thing. So it's like, how am I going to get these falls along with Dexter? It wasn't a safe location to have him sit somewhere with the falls in the background, but it was a good location that I could do 2 paws up and be able to get that falls into the background. So teaching them 2 paws up. Think about Christmas coming up here. If you're doing those Christmas photos, especially if you have more than one dog, it's like, okay, how am I going to pose all these dogs? 2 paws up on something, so 2 paws up on a package. But we want to teach them, how to do 2 paws up without all the props and the weird stuff first. And as you know, this is a good fitness one and exercise as well. So, and I do have videos. So this is a little more advanced, but 2 paws up in something. So we are in, I think this was when we went to Cavapalooza in Myrtle Beach maybe, but I'm like, all right, here's a nice little tree, let's go ahead, and Dexter's going to come in from behind. I'm going to have him do 2 paws up and grab that shot. And as you'll see from the photos of Dexter, they aren't professional photos. There's definitely flaws in the photos, but they're still, I think, good enough to have those fun shots and memories and go, oh wow, I remember this, I can see what happens. But if you look at Dexter, he doesn't have like the perfect lighting on below, but you're not always going to have the perfect lighting when you're out and about. But we're going to talk about how to do that and trying to find the best way. But to teach this behavior, you're going to look for something that's Cavalier size, that you can do 2 paws up and it's not really tall, so that they're just kind of a natural 2 paws up. You want to make sure that that object is sturdy, especially in the beginning when we're teaching them how to do it, because you want to make sure that when they do it, they're not slipping off and it's not too tall or flopping over. I have this nice little footstool that I got that's pretty low, and it's got a nice grippy top. Also those yoga footstool things I've done with Dexter, they're long. Remind me too, I can grab some links or show you some of Dexter's products. You want to look at that texture of that top, so that again when they do the 2 paws up, they're not slipping off. So if we use something like a book, you want to probably put a yoga mat on it. They also make small little yoga mats. Maybe you cut a yoga mat to make 3 foot, but 3 foot long, so that you can plop it around a little bit. And so you have your sturdy object, your dog. All right, this is why I have the video. Your dog is going to be in one location, the object in front of that dog, and then you in front of that, so that you're looking at your dog, but the object's in between you and the dog. And you're going to go from his nose with a reward, and you're going to lift that reward up and over the object to bring his feet up and on that object, and you're going to yes and treat. Now, depending on your dog, you might need to reward little bits at a time. So he maybe touches it with 1 foot, yes and treat. Touches it with another foot, yes and treat. That confidence. Some dogs like Dexter are like, I'm just going to fly at whatever you want to do. So one session we have 2 paws up. Again, we want to go at your dog's speed and their comfort level and reward that. So it might take more than 1 session. Once your dog's getting comfortable with that, you can add your cue. And whatever cue you want, you just want to make sure that it's consistent. So, up to, pause, up, that sort of thing. Once they're comfortable doing that, you can start using other objects. So when you're out and about, you go, okay, here's a nice little stone rocky thing. Lure up, yes and treat. Lure up, yes and treat. Here's the edge of a road. It's got a little lift to it. So 2 paws up, yes and treat. 2 paws up. So they get really comfortable. Then what you can do is you were starting to teach them that stay, is you start doing 2 paws up and then incorporate a stay. So I think about, if I'm going to take that if I'm going to take that Christmas photo with them having 2 paws up on a package, again, I have to have 2 paws up. I have to have that stay where I move away 5 feet, take the photos. So I can do 2 paws up and start building into that stay along the way. I can see the feed over here, so if you have any questions on what we're doing, go ahead and post the comments. I assume that I'll be able to go back and reply as well, so if I don't see them, I'll hopefully come back, and if they're not even in the group, we can still make a post about it, so we can even make a brand new post. So not only can we do 2 paws up, we can do 4 paws up. So there we are see, this is why I love photos. And for those of you who, kind of know me personally, you'll know that when we go somewhere and do photos, I'll be like, okay, I got 1,000 photos to go through. And, it's a lot, because I do love snapping photos away. And just a little kind of thing is, when I went to college, I actually studied photography, but it wasn't a take. Animals were much more my style. So I'm definitely not a photographer, and there's definitely loads of things that I would do differently and need to learn. But I can look at that photo, and you can barely see. Maybe there was a way to fix that. But over on the right, they had that otter. It was in this pond kind of thing. And so I thought that was a real cute thing, and I remember that was South Carolina trip. So 4 paws up, and this was quite a while ago. You can tell from Dexter, those ears. So he had his long ears before I started doing his little puppy cut ears. But there's a 4 paws up behavior. So there's an object that, wow, this would be a great photo if you could get all the way up on that object. So just like the 2 paws up, and I do start with 2 paws up usually, and I don't do, by the way, I don't do them the same time. So I don't teach two paws up and teach four paws up at the same time, because I think they're too similar and they can be confusing to the dog. You know, do you want two paws up or do you want four paws up? So since the behavior is very similar, I teach two paws up first and get that nice and reliable before then I go teach four paws up. But you have your two paws up, and you're just going to have another object that's longer and bigger for them to get four paws up. And it doesn't have to be straight and narrow like Dexter's little four paws up here. So it could even be, you know, a footstool where they're jumping up and doing four paws up. So that sort of thing. So we're going to go ahead and go to the four paws up tip. And I put the video, and I'm trying to remember, I might not actually have four paws up video, but, and if not, that's something we can do in the group. So again, you're going to look for something sturdy, and you're just going to kind of lure and encourage them. And to get them to do four paws up, unlike two paws up, sometimes we need a little more like, woohoo, come on, so that they complete that task, you know. And so there you see Dexter at the park, and, you know, I try to make sure, you know, he's 14 now, and we've done so many things, but I still try to remember, you know, we may have been to this park for 14 years, but that's him, well, that's probably 3 years ago. So that's him 3 years ago. So that was him when he was, say, 11. And it's just those memories. I can go back and go, all right, so Dexter, you know, we continue to, you know, lead that fun life and enrichment. But there was that nice rock, and I was like, okay, let's do the four paws up. Again, it's also good fitness and exercise, so why not? So that was something relatively high. So he does know four paws up, so that was a bit more of a challenge, especially as he's aging. And that's something to consider too. So as you're doing things with your dog, you might have to change things up as they age or their health changes. So Dexter's two paws up isn't as easy for him now as his four paws up, because having him do that balance with two paws is a lot harder than obviously four paws. So we're opting more for four paws up or him just sitting and standing. So you want to make sure that your dog's comfortable. Alright, so the next cue I like to teach is a chin rest. Teaching our dog to put their chin on something. And I use this a lot for, you know, I do blogs and stuff. I do this a lot for my product reviews, you know, trying to get Dexter in with the product. But it doesn't just have to be a product, you know. Christmas is around the corner, so I'm thinking about Christmas photos. I wonder if I'll be doing Christie's dogs again this year. But having them do their chin rest on the package, that can be a cute photo as well. When he gets gifts, so when Dexter gets gifts and you want to take photos of him having his different gifts, you know, having the chin rest is a really nice behavior. You can also do the chin rest on the foot, so he's laying down and just having his chin down on his foot or chin down on the floor. You can do that, you know, like when they're sleeping and their chin down. You can teach that behavior, so you can get that cute shot. It's just another way to get different kinds of photos for your dog. So, whoops, I didn't do that. So I don't think I have, you know, there's no little video thing. I don't think I ever taught this one on video. So what I do, it depends on the dog. You can do the chin rest on your leg too. That's always a cute one when they're kind of curled up in the nook. You can just say, you know, chin or head or face. My golden was head. I'd say head, and he'd drop his head down to the ground. Dexter's is chin, and he drops his chin down to the ground. You can train it differently. So if your dog is laying next to you, like say he's on the left of you laying and kind of facing your leg there, you can take the reward from his nose and kind of lure it over your leg so that it's kind of low and he's just above it. You can reinforce there, and you can gradually start to kind of drop that lure so when you're kind of feeling his chin on your leg, and yes and treat, chin on your leg, yes and treat. You can do that with your hand. So I actually, that's how I taught Dexter, was with my hand. So I'd place my hand under his chin when he's sitting or laying down, whatever your dog's doing, it doesn't really matter. Because all you're focusing on is the chin to teach them. So your hand is underneath their chin, not touching their chin, just under their chin. Because what you want them to do is you want them to drop their head. So you don't want your hand to be going up to their head. You want them to be dropping their head. So your hand is flat and under their head, under their chin, kind of like you're gonna, you know, pet their chin the long ways. And again, remind me, I'll get you a photo or a video. And you're gonna take that food lure and just kind of lure them over your hand and then kind of down, so that they're luring over your hand and you're starting to feel that chin rest. and then yes and treat, and then yes and treat. And then what you're going to do is you're going to kind of build, you're going to lure, they're going to drop their chin on your hand, you're going to wait 1 second, 2 second, yes and treat, so that you're kind of building that time of them resting their chin on your hand before they get that reward. And then once again, you can add your cue, what you like. Once they get comfortable about doing that, you can do more challenging things like that, like Dexter's painting there. That's not what I'd start with because that's a little weird and awkward. What age do you think is best for them to learn these commands right out the bat? So good question, Andrea. You know, the best thing about using, you know, positive reinforcement is we can use it all the time right out of the gate. So, you know, it's not doing any harm. Dogs are learning all the time. So the more they learn right away, the easier it is to teach them things. There's certain like foundation things usually that kind of precursor some of the cues that you want to teach. So you want to make sure you kind of teach those first a lot of times. So I hope that answered your question. If not, feel free to comment again. So there's the chin rest. No, I'm going back to your question, Andrea, and thinking about some of the cues like the paws up. So that's more of a fitness cue, so they could still do that even when they're young. You just want to make sure it's low so that we're not, you know, hurting their body and their growth. And as we're going through, I think that's the only thing so far that might have anything to do with their body. Holding an object. So Dexter's one of those dogs where maybe not so much now as he's 14, but when he was younger, that it was pretty easy to kind of teach him things. So I could go, oh, let's teach him how to hold an object. And I wouldn't necessarily have to go through a whole training session to get him to do it. Sometimes I'd be able to kind of just be goofy and get him to hold it for a second and stuff. But like I used to train service dogs, and we used labs and goldens, and holding an object was actually one of the behaviors. And here I go, get a big drink here, sorry. Was one of the behaviors that we had to teach them all. So that they would hold an object, walk over to the counter, put 2 paws up on the counter, and hand it to the person behind the counter. So that was actually, that's 3 behaviors into 1. So hold and carry, 2, well actually 4, 2 paws up, and then drop. So those are the things. But we're just talking about photos here. So holding an object. Do I hold a fake little flower or a real flower or some little toy? You know, did you get something when you're out in your travels that it would be cute for them to hold? You want to take a picture of them holding their brand new toy and not, you know, throwing it around. So that could be part of holding an object. I usually like to start with something soft in their mouth and something. So you can see that Cavalier, if I were to teach this behavior, I'd want the toy or the item to be smaller so his mouth isn't actually quite as wide. So we want to be able to be big enough where they're like, oh, I have something in our mouth, but not too big enough where it's like, wow, this is kind of weird and uncomfortable. So I'm going to take, you know, an object that's kind of comfortable looking and soft, and I'll just kind of, you know, wiggle it around. You don't want to get too exciting because you don't want them to be like, whoa, in that big old play mode. But just kind of exciting, and I'm going to yes and reward at the beginning anything. So if they put their nose on it or put their mouth on it, and you know, because I want them to know this object is something that's fun and exciting. So I'm going to yes and treat anything. And over my training lessons, I'm going to go, well, can I build this a little bit? So now, you know, we're kind of putting our mouth on it, but now I'm going to wait for them to open their mouth. So I want them to kind of open their mouth, and when they open their mouth, they're going to get a yes and treat. And they open their mouth, they get a yes and treat. And then again, building on it, you know, multiple days, multiple training sessions, depending on your dog. You know, they might go right off the bat and open their mouth. Great, you get to start from there. I open my mouth and I kind of, you know, grab the object, yes and treat. You want to do this slow and like a lesson like this versus play, because you don't want them to shake it around and that sort of thing. So I wouldn't use their toy. I would use, you know, something new and novel. It can be a fetch toy, but not one that they're currently playing with. So they open their mouth, they grab the object, yes and treat. Grab the object, yes and treat. And you're yesing and treating quickly because, again, you don't want that play session to go in. So I'm going to open my mouth, you know, grab the thing, yes and treat. So now I'm going to increase the time the dog is kind of holding that object. And when I'm doing this, this is the bad thing about not being able to see me as well, is when I'm doing this, my hands are on, if the object is long, my hands are on both ends of the object with my dog in the middle. So I'm there kind of with the dog kind of holding the objects. My hands are right there. And then they have it in their mouth for a half a second and then yes and treat, and then I grab the toy again. So, or the object, yes and treat. So they're not dropping it on the ground. They're dropping it kind of in my hand. And then I'm going to build that. So 1 second, 2 second, 3 second until my dog's eventually kind of holding that a little bit longer. And once my dog has a nice kind of hold, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, I'm going to yes and treat. And once that happens, then I'm going to work at doing that and adding in that stay so that they're holding the object and staying, and then I'm going to incorporate the distance. So we see how all these behaviors, you eventually kind of tie them together. So I'm going to hold the object, stay, step away from my dog, snap the photo. Okay? And then once they're comfortable, again, you add your cue, and then you can add different objects. So once they're comfortable with an object that's nice and soft and comfortable for their mouth, then you can have a little more random objects that are a little more challenging. All right, so now, and again, feel free to keep asking questions. We can add questions later too. When you're out and about and you're taking photos, what's going on in the environment? So I think I even... There, okay. Phew. So I was going to say, did I even cut it off? And that's part 2. That happens all the time. Is what's in the background. When we travel, we're always trying to find those landmarks and those state signs and where we went, those destinations, that sort of thing. And it can be challenging. One, it can be challenging just finding, signs like that. But it doesn't have to always be signs. It can just be something fun and exciting. But the objects, we have the smaller dogs, and the objects can be so large that you have to move far away, which is why our stay is important. We have to move far away, and then our dogs do start to get smaller and smaller. So, those are some of the pitfalls of it. But when you're taking the photo, you do want to make sure that you're kind of looking inside to see what you're getting. Did I chop and I don't know if I chopped off the very, very, oh, you can see my pointer. If I chopped off the very, very tip up here, or if it's just chopped up because of the slide. I can't remember. I'll have to go back and check. But trying to make sure that everything's kind of in there and kind of framed. And again, this could be chopped off more because it's in the slide. But, I try to make it, if I have the photo, I want to probably make sure that it's kind of like that, so it's a little more even and stuff. But you're trying to pose your dog in the right way that you can kind of see everything, see the dog, see what's going on, what are some fun things in there. So that was my, 4 paws up, so he had to do an up to get up on something, and then our sit stay. And, we still have that strength issue where we don't have that perfect sit stay, but that's okay. As he's getting older, his poses like this are down. So we're in the down cue so that he's more comfortable. So that makes, that short dog even more challenging. And we're going to talk about different angles. Well, we're going to talk about one angle, but there's obviously lots of different angles that you can do. So I could have, and maybe I did, I'd have to go back into my 1,000 photos from our Rock City Gardens thing, which is dog friendly. But you could do one where you're lower than the camera, and I've done this before, looking up at the dog to get the sign up high. So, those are some of the things that you can do too with the dogs. I did not put him up there, and there was probably a reason. It was probably really actually deep and down, back there, so it wouldn't be safe. So you want to make sure, obviously, that your dog's, safe during that thing. And, trying to find things for your dog and what makes sense for your dogs. All right. So when you're taking those photos, we're trying to find, the nice locations and that sort of thing, but you're also trying to look at, where are all those shadows with my dog, because I don't want to have too much shadowing if I can avoid it. Again, there's not always that I can avoid everything, but those are just things that I try to keep in mind. And this was just a walk, so this wasn't one where I was like, oh, I got to have this great photo. However, when I am doing my walks, I am sometimes paying attention a little more than other times. So I could have taken this photo of Dexter and had him facing this direction is probably where that, sun is. And then his face is going to be more in the sun and not shaded like that. So that would have been, probably a nicer photo. Sometimes, though, I get silly and I can see his hair coming up here. So the wind might have been blowing this way, and I might have been saying, let me get those ears up in the air. So it just really depends on what you want to do. You can, for this is again just a snapshot during a walk, so I don't really care. But if this was one of our vacation photos and I wanted to get the hair up there and stuff, I can go back in there later and edit, and I have, edit the shadow out and, fix this and stuff. So, you can go back and kind of fix things too if you really got something you like and you're like, oh crap, I didn't see that shadow. I wish I would have. So sometimes you can go back and manipulate it. But when you're, taking your photos, just be aware, look at the shadows. Dexter's obviously white here, and you can see he gets whited out. So if he's in the sun too much, he gets whited out really easily. So it can be a bit more of a challenge, especially if you have like all the colors or multiple colors. You have your bright blenheim, and then you have your black and tan. So you're going to be trying to look at the lighting and stuff and seeing, which place is the best place for your dog. All right, so back to those shadows, you also want to look at the, what else is in there. I should have showed a photo of weird stuff. But when you're taking that photo, maybe I did over here. Nope. What's in the background? Are there people in the background? And again, you can go back and photo edit things out, and sometimes it's necessary. You have no choice. But, what's back there? Is there a lot of clutter? Is it things that I want to know? Is it a garbage can? So when you're looking at your dog in that camera, just look at the whole picture. Is there something annoying in there? And if so, can I just move my dog in a different angle? So maybe I can do this beach shot, but maybe Dexter's over here, and then there's no one back over there. And that may have been the case. And then back to the photo editing, this was one I could tell right off the bat. And then I edited out. You can see right there is part of his harness. I don't know why I didn't edit all that out. But he did, and there's the harness right there. He did have, it's an old picture, an old edit. So he did have his harness on and his leash on, probably right there. And I photo edited that out just to take it. But because Dexter isn't off leash at the beaches and stuff. Now I tend to leave them in there a little more often just to promote that, we are on leash. We're at the beach having fun, but we are on leash, and that's okay. And this was the Outer Banks, so 2014. So again, I can pop in and remember that this was maybe it was, 2014 trip. The old man's been around a lot. And you can even look. So maybe you take a walk on the beach and you see him leaving those paw prints. He did not. I think we probably can't. They might have got washed out. But, those paw prints are always so cute. So maybe I leave those into the picture a little bit. So there's the lighting. So when you're taking those photos, try to, look for the lighting. And it is usually better not to do that bright light, So at the beginning, I remember going, all right, it's noon. You got that big bright sun, and that's where I want to go. And again, Dexter would get washed out. So we do try to look for sometimes just even in the shadows. So if I'm in, and I don't mean shadows and that's one of the things you want to try to avoid, where the shadows are kind of like on your dog and all these weird places. Not that you have to avoid them, but if you're trying to get your dog all cleaned up in there. But in, like, maybe over here, like, let's say it's a shadow day where the shadows, this whole thing, we could be over there and not have the brightness. But this was a nice day where the sun was out. It might have even been an overcast day, but there wasn't any harsh lighting. And there's my 4 paws up, and that's a log. So there's our 4 paws up on that log, kept the harness on. And so that is one of the things that I'm starting to be a little more aware of as well, is where is that leash and stuff at. So when I take that photo, sometimes I'll actually put it on the other side now of Dexter's leg. I'm trying to think, this might have been on the way to the Outer Banks trip. So during one of our pit stops. So if I were to repose this, I'd take that leash and have his leg be here and the leash be over here, or the leash be behind there. So I might flip that leash in the back. So those are all things that we can kind of start, looking at. And now that we're doing a lot more conditioning, I may have even positioned his feet a little bit better if here's something he was able to do, so that he's standing a little bit straighter as well. When you're taking the shot, and this just depends on the picture you're trying to get, but targeting your dog's eyes, we always want to have the dog's eyes in focus the best that we can. Now, when you're doing further away shots, that's not always possible. We kind of get that whole thing kind of in focus, kind of relatively in focus, just not blurry. But if you're trying to do a close-up of your dog, you want to kind of get those eyes in focus and not the nose, which can be a challenge. So sometimes, what I'll try to do with my camera is if I get Dexter all lined up and I touch the eye, or slide that thing that focuses up to the eye, it'll do a better job at focusing on the eye. So think about, kind of getting right in there and focusing with your dog's eye. Now, to get your dog to look at the camera and not to the side, we practice that eye contact. So what I tend to do is I'll kind of line Dexter up, but I'm actually lining him up with my camera below my eyes. So my camera's not on my eyeballs, but it's kind of dropped below, and that's good with these smartphones. We don't have to have our cameras on the eyeballs. So I'll kind of drop it below my eyes just a little bit, but then I do the look with Dexter at my eyes. So he's looking up at me in the camera, so we get that gaze a little bit better. We talked about natural lighting up there a little bit. Try to take the flashes off. I always have my flash off of my camera. If I need to add it, I'll add it. I'll turn it on. But for the most part, I always try to turn it off because that can be one of the reasons why dogs don't like looking at the camera, because of all the flashes in their eyeballs, so they tend to look away from it. So try to turn that flash off, and plus it does, that bad lighting. This is because we're in the studio, and that's my actual light, so that's in his eyes too. It is buffered, but this is one of the reasons why I don't do them for very long. And again, I can go back and photo edit that out if I'd like. I've actually had photos where you can see me in there, which is kind of cute. But you can just drop that camera to get the shot. Now, keeping them short. So this is one of our photo shoots, trying to get that little Christmas photo going on there. But keeping those sessions short, whether it's real things when you're out and about taking photos, or you're trying to take photos in the house, those Christmas photos or what have you. Their attention span and sitting and staying and looking, don't take that too long. One of the other things that I learned with vacationing with Dexter and traveling, those landmarks, and we try to even do pit stops, because sometimes we try to do fun things on the pit stops, but I'm like, oh, okay, I want to get a picture of this. And at the very beginning, we get out of the car, and I put Dexter next to the sign, and he's looking around, trying, not looking at me, and I'm trying to take a photo. So don't do that. When you're going to get your photos and stuff, let them investigate where they are, look around, smell, all that kind of stuff before you start snapping away. You'll get better photos once they get to actually kind of go, okay, what's going on? Because when you're traveling, you're at a new location and things like that. So can you hear Dexter? Keeping things short, letting them sniff around and investigate before we pull out that camera is my other tip. So there we are. Let's see if I can drop this a little bit more. And again, I don't think it's cut off here. I think it's just a slide. But here's a photo we went to. We were in New York, and he wasn't allowed to go up there. And don't worry, that's not, you can see over here, it's shallow there. He's actually not on the edge, so he really isn't falling off. But there's the sign, we have the background, he's not totally in focus. So even when we have things that are a little not quite right, sometimes they're still okay. We can still go back. We're talking about these are our memories and stuff. We can still go back. But you can see Dexter here. I talked about letting them investigate and look around. We sniffed around here, we walked around before I plopped him up here, but then I plopped him up here and it's like, where am I at? So trying to take it easy, letting him kind of investigate and look, and again, keeping him safe. It was definitely a safe location, and then I snapped around and took the photos. So there you have it. There's a few tips to kind of get you started on taking photos of your dog. And again, it's about kind of teaching them some different kind of cues and behaviors so that you can get those shots. And there's more things that you can do with your dog. There's lots of different, that paws up. So the two paws up, you can also, I guess I missed not having it in the slide, but you can do a paws up where they put their paw on an object. So I do that a lot with Dexter with our photo stuff, putting a paw on an object to take that paw on the object and then putting your head down and stuff. So All right, so I am going to, I think, end this live here. Hopefully it'll stay in the group, and maybe I will be able to merge the first video with the second video and upload it on YouTube. But please let me know what you thought, if there you have any questions, or if you had any additional ideas. Again, we're a working, happy, supportive group, so we're all wanting to learn more fun ideas. So I think that's it. I appreciate you guys coming this Saturday afternoon.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to both of our YouTube channels for more free content.